So, you think that Gohan learning to temper his mood is a good thing? Well, there's something that we've got to take into account first. Hey folks, MasakoX here. In this adventure, this all stems from the original notion that a lot of us may have had when we first saw this character at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. Gohan here. We know him to be quite the amiable, cute and learned fellow, but he did have one major problem with his grasp of his power. You know, he could go berserk at any moment and quite frequently back in the day, and his rage boosts, albeit being useful, certainly did make him turn into a very ferocious beast for short bursts, and that's not counting the Zaru. But what if these situations were more frantic and less able to be controlled? In short, what if the likes of Broly's anger and rage was transported into Gohan, and we got someone like the original Rage Baby in the son of Goku? How would this impact the story? And would the child have a chance at normality at all in this life? This came about from one of our older roundtable visitors, Philip Perkins. Supposing we had a trade-off where Gohan's power and potential were increased quite drastically from what we got in Dragon Ball, but at the cost of his inner fortitude and resolve, making him go crazy. In short, he'd go berserk. His boosts in power more sustained, but at the same time, it would really make him into a much more unsustainable person to be around, as well as being able to actually function at all. The Dragon team would be brought together out of necessity, even by the likes of Piccolo, by the fact that they needed to get Goku's kid under control, or else the entire planet of Earth would be doomed, scorched, not a safe place in the slightest to be on. Or Gohan would have to simply be exiled, and nobody wanted that, not even Piccolo. In the last part, we could see that Gohan's lesson in personal calm was bearing fruit. Despite the fact that a lot of stuff had been happening on Namek to make him a bit jittery, the young lad was able to keep his lid on and ride out the storm of turmoil raging in his mind. And also, thanks to the more resolved plan from the Dragon team on Namek, as well as Piccolo being there, much more so than the original, and his potential being unlocked as well, Frieza had to go further to push the Namekian into submission. It took a lot out of him, he had to go to his final form. This in turn gave the team time to use the Dragon Balls as best as they could, and make sure they became stone, leaving the planet and universe away from an immortal Frieza. However, there is an injured Goku to take into account here, who is now battered around more and more thanks to the Emperor's failed resolve. This unlocks Gohan's anger, and sure enough, the child is now pounding on final form Frieza. Now, before you say anything, this isn't enough to cause some lasting damage or anything, but it's certainly enough to throw the tyrant off his groove. What was going on here? How was this child causing trouble? In the end, Dende's life force faded away, healing both Gohan and Piccolo to the point where they could walk. But Frieza now, he's got bigger problems to deal with. A raging Goku. As we recall, after healing Piccolo and Goku, Dende had to give all of his life force in order to get them into a somewhat fighting shape. They wouldn't be able to go all out though, but they could at least not be considered liabilities, walking wounded. Right now though, everyone was looking in shock, as well as awe, at Goku. Despite having sustained considerable injury, he's presently giving Frieza a serious beatdown. He's actually in a pretty furious state himself. Piccolo was musing that this was probably the origins of the little one's power. He definitely was his father's son now. But it's also important to note here that Goku's anger boost here is unlike Gohan's. It's evolving, seemingly. His eyes were whiting out, but wait, his hair's changed, it's spiked up. That's a new one. And not only that, but the Saiyan was now, instead of holding it together, starting to turn the tide away from Frieza, who takes some time to regain equal footing in that situation. Piccolo was also sensing Goku's energy. It was changing, becoming more raw, animalistic by the second. Something's happening to him and he's not sure whether he likes it. Now, despite not being able to sense energy himself, Frieza was starting to get the message, feeling like he was no longer the one in control of his present situation. Frieza then, of course in that way, threatens to blow up the planet in a rather grandiose fashion. Normally, this would get a bigger reaction from our Dragon team, but nobody here is in the mood to indulge him. So, he just goes ahead and does it, without any flair. That does make him sad. And he damages the core greatly, but the rock is still there, as he usually winds up doing in these scenarios. Having no clue that the planet is going to ultimately blow up, Yamcha, Krillin, Bulma and Puar Ginyu are tasked in trying to give Gohan some further medical attention. The ship might be damaged, but can it still fly? Can they get out of the potential blast zone in time? Away from this mess, the now strongest Namekian goes through his options. He wants to stay and help, feeling like he can still contribute and help Goku. But before he can make a solid decision of his own, he then receives a telepathic message from Kami, all the way from Earth. I know that you want to play the hero, Piccolo, but this is no time for grandstanding. I also understand that you got interrupted with your wishes by Frieza. So I managed to gather our Dragon Balls if you needed them. Piccolo smiled. You're right, we were interrupted during the wishes. So instead of lording it over me, if you can revive every victim of Frieza and his men right now, I'd like that. I'll be able to wish Guru back and transfer everyone safely to Earth. This may come as a shock to you, Kami, but we gotta work together for this one. Kami is quite surprised to hear this coming from Piccolo of all people. My, you've come a long way, my friend. Don't get any ideas. Just stick to the plan. And as they end the conversation, this is precisely what happens. The plan, not the musing. As the Dragon Balls start to glow again and Guru is revived for a little longer, Frieza tries to charge towards them, disregarding the ever-present Goku. His hopes of immortality had now been restored with the dragon back, and Frieza was possessed. You thought you can cheat, but he then gets interrupted by a punch to his lower body. Thanks to the contributions of No, Piccolo now knows the Namekian language completely, and so he can summon Porunga and enact the wish before Frieza can get anywhere near them. Dende and the other fallen Namekians are now returned to life, quite shocked by what they're seeing, and the fact that their planet was on the brink of death, that too. But before Frieza can do anything else, he sees people starting to then disappear before his very eyes, just popping out of the ether. All his enemies were vanishing out of sight, save for Goku and Piccolo. Everyone else, they were gone. Goku was not happy to see that Piccolo was still here though. You should have left with them, Piccolo! If you die here, we'll lose our Dragon Balls! Goku's snarling at him after that. I know! So let's take him down together and make sure that doesn't happen! Goku's annoyance broke. He actually did like the sound of Piccolo being confident. Right, let's do it! And with the help and oversight of Piccolo, Goku is able to destroy Frieza with his new powers. The Tyrant doesn't get even the slightest chance of getting up to his full power. Again, that's thanks to Piccolo keeping a check on Goku's Saiyan impulses. But there is still the matter of Namek to deal with. The planet is still on the path to exploding, and the pair now have to escape it somehow. Frieza wasn't there anymore to get in their way, but his actions were. They keep the Dragon Balls safe for the moment as they still have one wish left on them, an attempt to use the ship that is now left unoccupied. A large part of the ship is depressurized, but that doesn't matter right now. They managed to leave the planet with moments to spare. They also witnessed 3 capsules leaving the planet at the same time as them. It seems like there were other people that survived, possibly some members of the Ginyu Force. But they didn't care right now. They had the issue of watching the planet explode. And then nothing. And then, what were they going to do? Both Goku and Piccolo drift aimlessly through space for some time, with both of them trying to understand the Super Saiyan transformation that had come over Goku. As their knowledge about it, it's pretty limited as you might be able to understand. And what about the Dragon Balls of Namek? What do they do with them? Should they use the last remaining wish right now to get themselves home? Should they keep the wish as a last resort? Is Gohan capable of learning and using effectively Super Saiyan as well? Could this be the ticket to grasping his rage through a more constructive power? Goku felt that when he was in that form, he could then better tailor it so it might help Gohan. Or, at the same time, Super Saiyan could be the catalyst that dooms everyone. It might make Gohan worse. Again, they had no idea. Their thoughts, though, are interrupted by them arriving at a mysterious planet. Fortunately for them, the people that live on said planet are friendly. They get rescued by the locals, known as Yardratians, who offer them a place to stay, and then, when they're able to, some training. Goku and Piccolo decide to make use of this rare opportunity, especially since the Elder Pibara revealed to them that they can be taught many exciting and intriguing techniques, such as instant transmission. That was just the start of it. Wow, that sounds cool, thought Goku. But then a thought dawns on the Saiyan. They now know what to wish for in the Porunga. They use the wish to transport Gohan to them instead of them going home. Gohan is happy to see his father and Mr. Piccolo alive and well, but is also confused as to why he was brought here. and then mulls over how horrified his mother must have been just seeing him just vanish. It then becomes clear though that the Yardratians may have a special kind of training that can help Gohan as well, finally put to bed Gohan's terrors and give him peace of mind fully for the first time in his life. You can imagine how happy Chi-Chi was back on Earth when her son that was pretty hurt not so long ago disappeared. Piccolo managed to use his telepathic bond with Kami to explain the situation to her, as well as the fact that Goku might have found a way to help Gohan contain his anger. This was something that would prove ultimately beneficial for all of them. The mother of Gohan tries to protest this still, but Kami interjects. "My dear, this could be the final piece of the puzzle. I was only able to do so much, but this training could prove vital. The Yardratians are famous for their ways of the mind. They don't believe in strength alone in making someone great. Sometimes the simplest of skills is enough to prevail." Chi-Chi is sad and reluctant, but she learnt to trust Kami's and Piccolo's judgment with Gohan. The former had made Gohan's life at least a little bit easier. During their time there, Piccolo quickly learns instant transmission, which allows him to transport Chi-Chi to Yardrat for further proof that their plan was safe and sound, as well as to try and just calm her nerves. Now she can be near her son and watch him train nearby. He also brings Krillin, Tenshinhan, Yamcha and Chaozu for a ride and important training. Pibara is happy for the extra company and can tell the people coming were of good mind and soul. It was so nice to have visitors since the Yardratians were bound by their own edict to never leave the planet. However, all these guests arrived one at a time. It was gradual. To not leave Earth completely, obviously, defenseless, and also trying not to overwhelm the local population. Baby steps and all that. And then to everyone's surprise, Chi-Chi also wanted to get in on the training, and Gohan was thrilled to hear this, but equally perplexed as to why. Chi-Chi nods and explains, "Maybe if I take part, it'll allow me to understand your father better." She's pretty stubborn though as a candidate of training, and although it takes her a pretty long time to get to grips with it, Chi-Chi is at least able to use instant transmission. However, after experiencing all of this, she decides to limit herself to only doing that, and maybe Pibara expanding her potential. That was enough for her. She simply wanted to gain some perspective, not to get strong. Needless to say, like the original, Goku gets bored of the training quite quickly. It wasn't exactly the most stimulating of tasks, and they had managed to master it quite easily in comparison to other examples of training from the past. Piccolo and Tenshinhan were the beings who got the best gains from all of this training, the Triclops benefiting from all of the training being more of the same stuff that he'd been doing before, and thusly, his fortitude being the best to cope with it. He felt like he had really come a long way here on Yardrat, and that he could finally realize his dream to surpass Goku, or at least keep up with Goku for the first time in years. Years of being on the sidelines. Now you're probably wondering about Gohan. How is he handling all of this? Well, a lot of the training for him was really focused on trying to contain his anger instead of getting stronger. That was the biggest challenge to overcome for all concerned. So, while he is very quick and skilled at the theory part of the training, as for the physical part, that takes longer to grasp. His patience being relatively thin, not only because of his condition, but also for the fact he's 6. So Gohan's going to have to remain on Yardrat for a little while longer, but Chi-Chi's okay with this since she now knows who he is staying with. She liked Pibara. He was very on the level and calm. With them getting what they can out of this training, our heroes return to Earth, now with them able to use instant transmission amongst other skills, then visiting Gohan now and again, that being no problem. And one of the other beneficiaries from all of this is of course Puar, who also managed us to learn something quite major and relevant to him. Thanks to the Yardratians, he is able to prolong his shape-changing abilities. Thanks to their mind exercises, he can now transfigure himself into anything for as long as he would want to. No time limits. This means he can simply revert to his cat form, but still retain Ginyu's techniques. It's just a shame though that he only knows body change, but hey, that might come handy someday, right? But the real challenge comes later, when our heroes discover that Frieza hadn't died on Namek. In fact, he had been rebuilt by his own father, King Cold, as Mecha Frieza. Ginyu is also back in a new body, alongside Berta and Jace, who managed to survive Namek's destruction. They were right, they had escaped. Some of the Ginyu force had lived to fight another day. But if you think this was going to be a big problem, then fear not. Cold and his army got dominated pretty drastically. The new Yardratian powers our heroes got have now allowed them to completely and utterly decimate the army. In fact, They were now so buffed up, they started to wonder what all the fuss was about with this army. And without Vegeta here, the only ones dying now are Frieza and Cold, who tries to trick them with bargains as per usual, but ultimately gets blasted by Goku. No deal. The remaining soldiers, led by Ginyu, escape Earth, vowing some sort of revenge, but they actually don't have a clue as to how to enact it. They just want to get out of there. Gohan then gets informed about this when Krillin is tasked to drop in and tell him the news, which calms Gohan down greatly. In fact, he's elated. He managed to contain his anger, the evil was defeated, the Namekians have got a new home, and they all gained a lot of strength, and new Yardratian friends. So, happy ending, right? Well, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I swore that this is the part of the story where there's supposed to be a future warrior with some kind of important message to arrive and tell the group about something, an upcoming event. You know, and Goku's heart being a Oh. Vegeta's dead. Well, I guess this is where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? With Trunks not being born and able to come back in time, how will our heroes get the message about the androids? Will they get the message? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!